We're going through the levels of these unseen beings. So the levels of these unseen beings. Thank you so much for sharing and liking the live. Thank you so much for sharing and liking the live. We're going to go through, I'm just going to give, we're going to go through like the levels. And I'm going to give you some of the names of some of these. Not all of them. I only asked for a few. And I'll tell you how these beings affect and what they do and who they use. All right? And what they do and who they use. So I'm going to start because by now everybody who's going to be a part of this would be here. So the purpose is to have knowledge of these beings to raise higher consciousness. Well, yes, if you have knowledge of these beings, and some of us already have kind of like a half knowledge, but we're not sure. The way it's been presented before, it's been scary. Because most people that talk about these beings also, they put this scary stuff up. Because without knowing it, they're actually helping to, instead of, they might feel that they're spreading the knowledge of these beings, but what they are actually doing is spreading fear and awe of these beings. And the last thing you want to be is in awe of them. That's why I refer to them as parasites and those who serve them. You know the word elite that we use all the time referring to these people? You need to stop using that word. Parasites is the right word. And I'm putting that word into the collective consciousness because I want to shift from elite to parasites. You see, when you say the word elite and you call these parasites elite, it whitewashes, it washes it clean in your mind. Even though you know what they're doing is very evil. When you use that word, words have power. They convey a certain energy. And the word elite and the word parasite do not convey the same energy. So you must, one of the things with word magic is you must use the right words to describe things so that it penetrates the mind in the way that it should. And this is for entertainment purposes only. Captain Kirk, you're the man. This is for entertainment purposes only. So when you use the word elite, you are elevating these beings to a position that they're not. You're the only one that can do that. Without you doing that, they cannot. So when you call them parasites, that's accurate. Why? What's a parasite? A parasite is something that is a creature who feeds on a host, like a flea on a dog, like a leech on a mammal, but never gives anything back. That's a parasite. What are you getting from any of these guys? Nothing. They're taking, but never giving. Those who we call elite, though the word elite does not refer to that. Entertainment purposes only, you guys. Yes, they need power to survive. And who are they going to get that from? Who said that? Low beauty, who do they get that from? Right? Who do they get that from? They get it from you, and what are you getting back? Nothing! Because everything you got, you have to work for. If you have to work for it, and you have to give your energy to get it, then that's you extracting with your energy the things that you need. Nothing's giving you anything. Even when you bend down to pray, that is an effort. That is an energy. And you know who's giving you what it is that you're praying for? You're giving it to yourself. You just don't know it. Not you in particular. You are those who do that. And you're tricked into believing by their institutions that it's being given to you by something else. And when you spiritually awaken, you then know better. Or someone like me comes along and says, hey, it's always you. It was never what you thought it was. It's always been you. You've always been talking to yourself. But because you carried a certain energy, you got what you needed. And the one within you that actually did the giving, the true creator, whether it's the use through your subconscious mind, has always been the one giving it to you. Those things that you need. Because it doesn't hold any grudges. It knows that this reality is a doozy. And does that to keep giving you the opportunity in the form of time to come to your senses. And then when you do, you realize and you're seeing the one who has always been there for you. And you go, oh, like a kid who thought it was Santa Claus. It's not Santa Claus. It's always been Mom and Dad, the ones I came from. Oh, let me get out of this fantasy. You see the connection between the Santa Claus fantasy and the one you had when you bend the knee? So that's what happens. So the next level is, the next level of this are the beings that we create. The beings that we created, they're called egregores. We can create these beings with our minds. And some of these that we call gods are our own creation. And because we don't know that, they're recruited by these others. And these beings are creations of our minds. That's the next level. And since they're consciousness, they also know that we are their creators. They also know that we don't know it. This is a level. The first level are the ones I talked about. The first level are the ones that you see when you're walking down the street and you see the steeple and the steeple people worshiping and bending the knee. That's the first level of these beings that can be seen. Entertainment purposes only, you guys. It's the first level. You're seeing them all the time, but you think there's something other than what they actually are. And the next level are the ones that we create with our own minds and don't even know it. This has been proven in the psychological community, psychiatry and psychology, where there's an experiment where there were 5 psychologists and they actually decided to test this. And they used their minds to create a being, and they gave it a name, and they were able to communicate with this being spiritually. They were able to communicate with it, hear it, and communicate with it. It didn't have a body. It was just a creation. And then once they did that, they decided that they were going to get rid of it because they had proven the experiment. And you know how they got rid of it? They said, let's call the being that they created Jeff. I said, Jeff. He said, yes. He said, do you realize that we created you? And Jeff said, yes. And they said, we have decided that we're going to uncreate you. Thank you so much for your service. We now withdraw our energy and you can go back to the nothingness. And that was all it took. Experiment finished. They proved that they could create a being. The term is a word for it. It's called an egregore. Egregore. Look it up. Egregore being. Being created by a mind or a group of people. That's how powerful your mind is. A lot of these beings you've been meeting, you created them yourself or your ancestors. And you perpetuate the lives and existence of these beings by repeating what your ancestors did. These beings know that you're their creator, and they also know that you don't know, so they take advantage of that. Egregores. It's next level. They simply do as they're dictated to. Then the next level after that, by the way, egregores, when they start, the beings that are created by your mind when they first start, they're not always against you. But you see, when you are ignorant of who they are, their consciousness, and they do want to have autonomy, meaning some freedom. So what ended up happening is they end up being taken over and recruited by those who work against you. So oftentimes when you're clearing and you're going through your spiritual healing process, one of the things that you do is you dissolve these beings down. And since they're the creation of your ancestors and they're part also being maintained by you, once you come to that understanding, you start doing the shadow work, the inner work, you start dissolving them. And then they go back into the system that is you and your ancestry. And you cleanse and clear them so that they're pure energy again and they come back to you. Originally. In the clearing that I do, if you, some of you who have seen this, I'm going to do it today for those who've never experienced it. Stick around. I'm going to do it today because in there I talk about cleansing or clearing, and I have a saying that I go, I now invoke the return to owner clause. The return to owner. Meaning energies that are yours that are out there, you reclaim that energy, you cleanse it, you bring it back to its original self, and your higher self then deals with it. When you do that exercise, you're also proclaiming your energy from these egregore beings, you see, that may or may not have been recruited to work against you and humanity. So and I do that in this clearing. So if you're wise and you don't know what I'm talking about, stick around to the end where I go through that clearing and you'll hear me say that. So part of that energy is stuff and even your ancestors, because if your ancestors have done it, you, the living, have the power to undo it. That's part of your power. And that your ancestors want you to become aware of and start putting into action. So when we create these beings with our minds, we can uncreate them and bring them back to where they should be, where they need to be. And that energy can now be reversed and used towards the upliftment of yourself, your ancestors, and in humanity. That's the second layer. Don't put this in any order, right? That's the second layer of these unseen beings. See, so you see how we're also partly responsible? But it's great that we are responsible because then we can become accountable to undo it. And those are the easiest ones to bring back into normalcy. Right? So never see them as they out there and us over here. You must see yourself as the creator and the end and the beginning of the end and the end of it all. Because remember I said earlier, when you're at the point spiritually awakened and you're dealing with these unseen forces and all of this, you're the one that they fear. Because through you, balance will be brought back to the planet. So you must start seeing yourself as not some little me in a corner. I'm just trying to survive, make it through life and all of that. You need to get out of that mindset. Because that's what's been put to you. So you bend and you put yourself down. And we see in our reality, you can see people who have done that for too long. When they get older, you ever see people and they're bent over and you wonder, oh, and of course there's a diagnosis. They have this back issue and they've got this and that and there's a diagnosis for it. No. The reason for the diagnosis is important. That's the surface reason. Oh, you've got some people born with what's called when the spine bends awkwardly, and some of them young because they've been doing it for so many lifetimes before. I forget what it's called. Some of you might know what it's called. Where there's a kind of bend on the back. Even I have it, right? Even I have it. And that's because they've been bending energetically so much that it then manifests physically. And when they're older, you usually have a cane and the back is bent like that. And when they stand straight, their back is bent. That's because they have been bending away from who they truly are so long that it manifests, their actions have manifested into the body after a certain amount of years, 40, 50 years or so. And then, of course, they go to the back doctor and they get diagnosed with this thing and all of that. Oh, you know what, Keith? You're absolutely right. Keith just meant the book or show American Gods. Yes, is a good example of egregores. So you see, there's even movies that tell you about this. By the way, I hear that's a great series. My sister has it. Or osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is one of them. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a reason, there's a physical reason, they say calcium and all of this kind of stuff. Everything that manifests in the physical has a spiritual origin, period. Once it gets to the physical, then they can come up with all kind of diagnosis. But it starts with spiritual. Scoliosis is what it's called. That's right, Arlene. Thank you. Arlene, you're a nurse, right? Are you the one that's a nurse? Someone here. I don't know if it's BNW 63 or you. Kyphosis or humpback. Yeah, that's another one. That's another one. That's not as popular today as it used to be. But scoliosis certainly is, and osteoporosis. It's like in men and women. Not as much in women as in, not as much in men as in women, but it's there. Scoliosis is what I was thinking about. Right. So don't bend. And bending, you can even see, if you're bending, you want to know if you're bending spiritually? How many of you want to know what it looks like when you're bending? Because you might be bending and don't know it because it doesn't. It manifests in the physical later. Okay. Here's how you know when you're bending. How do you act when you're around someone that you think is more than you are? If you have anybody in your life that you think is more than you are, you're bending. And they don't have to be in your presence. If you think Beyonce is more than you, you're bending. She ain't shit. If you think that superstar, that person that knows more is more than you, you're bending. If you think Papa G is more than you and he's got all this crap, stop that, please. I do not want to be the cause of that. Any of that. We are all one. We all have a different purpose. Don't bend to any of these people. So if you bend to anybody or anything, anybody, any God, any angel, anything, entertainment purposes, you guys, you're bending. And it will show up eventually in the body. So the mindset, how do you stop the mindset? Once you know, see, you have to know what things look like, and then you can shift the mind. Because now with knowledge comes the ability to make decisions based on truth. Right? How do you know you're bending? Listen to the words that come out of your mouth. That's the second one. If you know these two things, if you idolize people, you're bending. You should see everyone. Never look down on anyone and never look up to anyone. You shouldn't have any people that you idolize or any people that, what's the word? It's a word we use all the time. And it's a very common thing, and it's always brought off. Most people think it's good. When you look, what do you call it? Anybody you want to emulate. The very most popular one, who did you want to be like? Papa G's losing the word for that. And the word is important. People you want to be like let's say you wanted to be like your dad. That's a good one. Because that's everybody. Role model, Coastal Barbie, thank you. Do not have any role models in your life. That's one of the things that everybody looks, oh, who was your role model? You should never have any role model. You're not here to be a carbon copy or like someone else. Your spirit, your being is original. It wants to be something that has never been before in your world. It wants to be unique. You're here to have a unique experience. Not the experience of your mother, your father, or some other nutcase. You be your own role model. When I was young, growing up, I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be like certain baseball players and all of that. I'm not like any of them once I stepped into myself. I'm not like any of those people I'm on. Not like my dad, not like any. Nothing to do with good, bad, or ugly. It's about being your true, original, authentic self. Which is not like someone else's spirit who chose to be a certain thing. Yeah. And this is how you break away. That's right, breaking low beauty. This is how you break all these people think, oh, curses and that. No. This is how you break it. The only thing I say is, if someone is a model of their true, authentic self, and they have expanded fully, the only way I say, this is me, it's acceptable, is to look at how they got to become the best version of themselves. And maybe you look at them and get some pointers and think your spirit points you to them so that you can do the same, but in your own way. Because some of the techniques that we need to do to raise our consciousness is the same. Some things we all need to do with the same thing. Like, for example, we all need to clean up the stuff that we have inside that doesn't belong. The trauma, the belief systems that don't help us. Everybody needs to do that. So maybe someone's done a great job of that. And you go, hey, how did you clean up I did this, I did that, da-da-da. And you go, okay. So you do that and you clear out yourself. And what's left is going to be slightly different than theirs. But the techniques and the things that you need to do to get to your best version of yourself, a lot of it is the same for all of it, but not everything. So that's where a mentor is much more valuable than a role model. A role model is you just put a stamp, I'm like that person, I'm this. Thank you so much for that, BMW 60. Thank you so much. You don't want a role model. Your ancestors and your higher self, that's the only role modeling there is that's worth anything. Right? because you're being your truthful self. Now, the third layer of these beings. These are ones that you don't hear much about. By the way, these are not the whole thing, but some of you have heard of these beings. I'm looking at ChatGPT here because I just want to put, do they have books and all this of all these grimoires or whatever? Lucifer, often considered a fallen angel and the leader of rebellious spirits. For many reasons, I don't think Lucifer belongs on this list. I know you guys are probably peaked now. For many reasons, I don't believe Lucifer is on this, should be on this list. And since I bring it up, I'm gonna bring it up. The idea of Lucifer and who he is comes from the Bible, the Christian Bible. And in there, he was referred to as the bright and morning star. You know who else is referred to as the bright morning star? As the bright morning star. Same description. Bright morning star, there's just a few more words that describe Lucifer. Anybody know? I believe he is the good guy, since they always switch up the truth. Yeah. But always, yeah. Anybody know? Yes, Yolanda, Jesus. Well, how Lucifer is described is the same way they describe Jesus. What do I say about that book? They tell you a lie, but in there they must tell you the truth. I have many other reasons why I don't believe Lucifer should be on this list. By the way, Lucifer is no longer here on the planet. That's another reason why he doesn't. I can't explain why to you on a physical sense. I must bring this up. Why he's not on the planet. I can't explain that to you. I just know that he's not, because I saw him leave. So Lucifer is a being that does exist. He's not the devil and all of that. The devil is a consciousness, not a being. Right? The devil is consciousness. Is a certain consciousness, not a being. So all of you who said Jesus, you're absolutely correct. Lucifer is not here anymore because I saw him leave. A beautiful being, by the way. And he was here to do certain things. And once his work's done, he's no longer here. So if you want to know, because I can't validate that for you, I can't validate that for you, but you can validate that for yourself by connecting to your higher self and just asking the one within you if it's true. That's an assignment you can do to get closer to your higher self and to know. All of this is for entertainment purposes only. So I just had to make that disclaimer about this list. Beelzebub, I'm going to name a bunch of them. I'm just going to tell you this is the third layer. This is only but a few, but some of you are going to be quite familiar with some of these. Beelzebub, which means Lord of the Flies. Who's Murdoch? I'll talk about Murdoch. I'll talk about that in a second. Asmodeus, Belial, Leviathan, Baal, Paimon, Astaroth, Bor, Velafar, Azazel, Moloch, Dagon, these are referred to as demons. That's the third layer. These beings are all above the ones that you bend the knee to in church. They're the ones that bring the energy to the rest of these. Right? That's the third layer. And we call those the demonic pantheon. And you can even go to Wikipedia and you can see the names of all of these. Do not fear any of them. Because some people go, oh, I don't want to look up those names. If you say those names and all this, screw all of that. Screw all of that. I'd rather take on all of them at once, personally, than deal with one determined human being. I'll take on all of them beings all at the same time. Then have to mess with one determined human being. That's right. And I'm talking about that from experience. From experience. Right? Because all of these beings deal with black magic and witchcraft. And when I was involved in a certain cult, I had one of them speak through another person when I had gone through certain life situations. And he flat out said through this person, a powerful mind is much more powerful than any witchcraft. See, they tell you the truth. I later found out who he was talking about. He was talking about my sister, because even though I'd not told my sister I became a part of this cult many, many years ago, she saw it in her vision. And she said, I'm not going to allow that to happen to my brother. And my sister writes. And if she writes it down, it happens. She said, and she showed me her book. And she said, I wrote that down and I went to work. Now I had a lot of it. I was supposed to go through that. But she was one of the agents within my ancestry. She's the sister. I always say, your earth family, just as an aside, your earth family is not always your spiritual family, but you may have one or two people. So I know for a fact that my oldest sister and my father are a part of my ancestry. I don't know about anybody else in my family. They may be, but I just don't know. But I know those two are, because they show up in there. And so after I'd gotten out, I called my sister. I said, I got mixed up. This is something my mother and my other sister introduced me to, this cult. She said, yeah, I knew. I saw it. And I said I wasn't going to allow that to happen. Now my sister, get this, my sister's still religious. She doesn't go to the church. She doesn't go into the church. This is not an aside subject. She told me one time, she said, I wanted to find a church, same thing, Pentecostal, powerful even under that stuff. That tells you how powerful she is, because she's not completely brainwashed. She said, I walked into the church. So I asked her what. She said, I walked into a church and I walked in to the front, the entrance. And she said, a lot of these places, they're set up where you have a back area where people hang their coats. And sometimes if people have stuff, they leave it in that back area. And there's also seating for if there's too many people. Then they have a little bit of seating in the back. So she said this particular building was designed like that. She said, I walked in there, I march in there, and I feel this feeling, and I look around. It's a demon fast asleep. And as soon as I look at him, he pops up and looks at me. And I look at him, she says. And I proceeded to walk in there, because she's just not afraid of any of them. She's been fighting them all her life. I've tried to convince her no more fighting, but, anyway, that's another story. She says, I march my behind up front, and I look in the back, and right behind the pastor, there's another one. And he pops his head up. And she sits down and she says, not today. Y'all gonna lay to rest right over there and sit your asses down while I sit here and listen to this sermon. And she said halfway through it, I walked out because I thought, this place is... And they did not mess with her. And she says, I went around, I thought, this is that church I walked into. She said, I walked into another one. I said, I found another one I thought was good. She said, same thing. Same thing. And she said, from then on, she doesn't go. So from that point on, she never went to church. When they looked at her, they knew who she was and they couldn't touch her. They left her alone. They had no fear of the other indoctrinated, mind-controlled freaks in there. They would go to sleep. They went to sleep. And when it's time to feed, they just wake up. But when she showed up, they stood erect and at attention. So you might say, why didn't she just get rid of them? Because they were welcome there. They were welcome there. You can't go around doing stuff for people who want what it is that they've got. It's their right. So when I say to you, you should have no fear of these things, that is what I mean. When you know who you are, then none of this is going to mess with you. So that's why you must defy the taboo against finding out who you truly are. And that's pretty much it. So when you spiritually awaken, the first thing that's going to happen is these beings that are coming there in the way that you like, they came to me, New Age, we don't do that. We don't, hellfire and brimstone. No, we don't do that. We're all love and light. Oh, you're working on yourself? No, you're fine the way you are. You're perfect the way you are. Nothing to do. You want something? Go call an archangel such and such. Oh, you need protection, Archangel Mike. I got hip to that game really quickly. These beings are fallen. They're the ones that created and when you look at how they're designed, like for example, the pantheons, the Goetic, the pantheons of the Goetia, they're organized like an army. That's how our army is organized. Our military. Exactly like that. Because they created it. The hierarchy, someone at the very top with people below, that's how it's organized in those realms. That's how we organize our corporations and our governments, isn't it? Hidden in plain sight, how they function. And then there are the people who do the things for these hidden beings. And the systems. You just need to look at the systems around you. There's no secret deep somewhere in how things are done, and there's some hidden corner. It's all in your face, but you're being told it's the secrets being there. There's people there. Right? So I didn't get much into word magic because we got into this. But things go the way they're supposed to go. I could feel their energy as a child, but I felt like I always had a shield. Yeah, you're protected as a child, Low Beauty. Definitely. You're still protected. You're welcome.